are the days of the B8's 3.0T, not actually turbo, but in fact the whiny supercharged setup, and here are the days of Audi's new 3.0T, actually turbocharged this time, in the EA839. I'm Marissa from FCP Euro. Welcome to our B9 engine diet guide. We're going to be going over everything you need to know on the Audi B9 engines today. S models come with the 3.0T single-turbo EA839 V6, producing 354 horsepower and 369 foot-pounds of torque. Both the 3.0T and 2.9 twin-turbo are based on the same engine family. On the surface, they seem to be an evolution of the outgoing EA837 used in the B8, B8.5s, but in fact, it's substantially different in design and execution. Some of the differences include wider bore spacing, 93mm versus 90mm, with cast cooling channels for improved cooling. On average, this engine runs 20 degrees cooler between cylinders than the EA837. The cast iron cylinder liners are up 0.5 millimeter in thickness compared to the supercharged engines in the B8s, and a substantially simplified timing system with a gear-driven direct drive crank to intermediate shaft system and chain drive from crank to oil pump / the intermediate shaft to the cam banks. This makes the timing on this engine a lot more simplistic and reliable than the B8s. There is Miller or B-cycle combustion for an improved process and improved combustion efficiency. All S models are equipped with an 8-speed ZF 8HP automatic transmission. As a result, there was no factory manual option for the S cars ever on the B9s for North America. General service intervals: Audi splits up service into minor service and standard service categories, with some variations and exceptions by model. The oil and filter service Audi recommends every 10,000 miles or every 1 year. Here at FCP Euro, we recommend every 5,000 miles. Engine air filter every 60,000 miles, check and replace. Here at FCP Euro, we recommend inspect every 20,000 miles and replace every 20 to 40,000 miles as needed. Spark plugs, Audi recommends replacing every 40,000 miles. Every 30,000 miles if running an ECU tune or more power is what we recommend. For the drive belt, replace every 60,000 miles. Brake fluid, replace every 2 years regardless of mileage. For the cabin filter, Audi recommends every 20,000 miles. Here at FCP Euro, we recommend checking it every year and changing out every 10,000 miles. Let's go over some of the items we have here on the table with us. I'm going to be starting with the failed parts because what's more exciting than looking at something broken? So, as we all know and love on any modern Audi ever, the engine mounts are always filled with a hydraulic fluid to keep the motor mounts from transferring some of that noise, vibration, harshness into the cabin and into your steering feedback as you drive. Now, a result of this design is that inevitably, as the weight is dispersed and as the motor mount does its job to keep everything smooth, it will eventually start to crack and shear. As you can see on this example here, we pulled this out of our S5 when we were doing a DIY service for it. If you want to see the exact process of the DIY, my pal Rusty did, go ahead and look at our playlist here for the B9 S5 build. We have all of the tech tips for every job that we've done for all of the used parts here on the table. You could follow along and do the process yourself in your own garage. But as you can see, as these start to crack, the oil will eventually leak out of these, essentially rendering the motor mount as not useless, but unable to do its job. As a result, we highly recommend 034 street density motor mounts. They are not filled with hydraulic fluid, therefore if they do fail, they're not going to leak and they're not going to fail as severely as the OE mounts do. Next, we're going to be going over some of our partner products. We have Hank's PCV block here. We have Hank's air filter for the 3.0T and the oil filter. These are going to be essential. If you just want to keep your car as your daily driver and you just want it running on the road right and reliably, there are no better options for filtration than with Hank's. We also have the best oil we can provide you with, Liqui-Moly's Top Tech 6200 oil for these cars. Next, we're going to be going over some of the failure points and comparisons. For example, here we have the oil filter housing gasket. Now, the funny thing about these gaskets is that even though it seals the oil within your engine, Inherently, due to the design of the oil filter housing, inevitably when you take the oil filter out, you can have a tendency to leak oil onto the exterior surroundings of the stand for the filter housing. If you do get engine oil to have contact with the exterior of this seal, you might actually cause it to swell, and when it swells, it starts to break down, and you can see this gasket started to tear. You might see these with an aftermarket oil filter stand or OE. It's important to know that when you are shopping for these, know that you can shop between this plastic filter housing here and a metal one. It's important to know if you are installing a plastic oil filter housing, be very careful and follow the torque specs as we mentioned here in this tech tip video. These can crack if you over torque them. Very simple sounding, but obviously we don't want these to leak either, so it's a very delicate process. Just be mindful, follow our DIY on that job to make sure that you're getting yours right. Next, we're going to be going over the water pumps on these cars. As we're recording this video, there is currently a super session going on for the water pump system. What I have here is something that was offered on the B9s. It is the 4-bolt water pump system. These are currently being superseded into a 6-bolt system. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the OE 6-bolt system here on the table for this video today, but we will be outlining what that looks like in a picture here. Now, what goes wrong with these water pumps is a little bit multifaceted, and it can kind of snowball into a more severe job. You see, there is a vacuum assembly here on the water pump, and if I set up this little vacuum pump just right, you're going to see how the water pump works. Now, if you look closely at this plastic propeller, you're going to see that there is this flange-looking like metal sheath, and you might be wondering what that does. And if I pump this up, you might have heard that, and you might see it, it's starting to close off the propeller. Now, what it's doing when it does this is what's going to happen to your water pump when you are cold starting the car. It's going to close off the propeller to help warm up the internals of the engine, and as it warms up, it will eventually loosen that like such. So I'll do that again so you can get a better look at it. Pump it back up. And if I release this, you'll see that it comes back and it lets all that coolant flow throughout the rest of the assembly. There's a failure point within this water pump that will eventually leak coolant out of this system into a solenoid that controls the ability of that sheath to move back and forth. Now, when it goes to the solenoid and it causes that solenoid to break signal, it is going to fail with the sheath closed. So it's going to fail with the water pump acting as if it is still in cold start mode. Now, if you're driving on the highway and you're going to pass someone and your water pump is in the closed off mode, obviously you're going to have some coolant issues within your car. Now, this can exasperate as the coolant travels through the vacuum system, and this could spread to all other components of the vacuum assembly in the 3.0T. This can even get into the wastegate of your turbo assembly. So it's important to know why the water pump fails, and when it does fail, what it can do to the rest of the vacuum system to wreak havoc essentially across your whole engine bay. So when you're doing the water pump install on your car or service, it's important to go ahead and check your hard coolant lines going throughout the engine bay of your car. These, with heat cycles, with just time and just the inherent nature of being in a hot engine bay 24/7, these are made of a really harsh plastic. As you can see, I can't really flex them that much. So when these start to get a lot of heat cycles into them, they start to get a little bit more fragile, start to get more prone to cracking or snapping, or just not even having what little flexibility they have here. So be sure to keep an eye on these. We do carry these here at fcpeuro.com. You don't want one of these snapping because it's kind of an awkward thing to replace. So keep an eye out on those as well. Now, I want to take a closer look onto the PCV system on these cars. Similarly to the water pump failure, if you neglect to take care of the PCV system on these cars, that can exacerbate some issues here. Audi put out a service bulletin for the PCV system in these cars. These hoses had a tendency to crack or fail. Check valves in these would often fail. As a result, Audi did a super session, they redesigned the hose. But funnily enough, the hose that superseded the original is still actually a failure point on many of these cars. As a result, here at FCP Euro, we don't actually recommend the OEM parts, but we do rather recommend the 034 PCV hose system. Now, these have a check valve design that does not fail like the OE1 does, and the hoses are a lot stronger. You can see they are manufactured in an entirely different technique. They are much stiffer, much sturdier, resulting in them being able to withstand some of the check valve pressures better than the OE system enabled. Now, if you have your PCV valves failing and you just continue to drive the car like that, you might think, well, what's the worst that can happen? That can force other supporting systems within the car to fail, including the PCV block here. If we take a closer look at this, you could see actually how this diaphragm ended up failing because the previous owner continued to drive the car with these hoses failed. So if you let the hoses fail and exasperate, you could see not only did it fail and break parts of the diaphragm off, but you could see it cracking everywhere else. So as a result, you're going to want to actually stay on top of the PCV hoses in these cars. We carry 034's PCV hose system upgrade in stock here at fcpeuro.com to alleviate this issue, whether you have a stock vehicle or you're modding your S4 or S5. Now let's talk about rocker arms. This is a very sensitive subject. It's a subject that overall has gotten a lot of publicity, a lot of fear-mongering behind it. The goal behind FCP Euro here is not to fear-monger you, it's simply to educate and allow you to make the best decisions based on your vehicle. Now, if you have a early production 2018 S4 or S5 or SQ5, you may be at risk for having the previous design roller rocker arm assembly on the 3.0T. If you do have the older rocker arm assembly, we highly recommend upgrading to the newer rocker arms. You can see the needle bearings are significantly bigger than this photo comparison of the originals. The race is a different profile. The pushrod arm here, this cup is a different profile. There are a few different things around it that can show you the difference. Going over ignition coils on these cars. Now, if you're looking to do, whether it's OE or aftermarket, we carry a lot of options for you. We have this ignition coil kit here, OE. This is a great option, and as you can see, if you look at the boot here, this comes pre-greased. This is great. A tendency for DIY failure on these cars is if you are installing these without greasing them, when you go to pull them off next time, they might rip and get stuck within the engine bay. That can be just a mess and just a pain to clean up and get them out. So it's pertinent that you double check no matter what ignition coil you're buying to see if it has that grease there. That's what that looks like. These are plug and play in that regard, which is really convenient. If you're going for aftermarket such as 034s and you want better performance out of it and better temperature and better coil strength, you can go ahead and get these. These, as you can see, are a little bit more higher performance as a result. They're included with these spacers here to enable you to space out the engine cover to make sure that these cooling fins here get the right amount of airflow they need to do their job. Now, these do not come pre-greased, so they come with our dielectric grease kit here to make sure that you are doing the job right, and getting the best performance out of your DIY. Now, we have a turbo here. We did pull the turbo off and replace it here at fcpeuro.com on this 2018 B9 S5 I have here behind me. Now, the turbo sits in the hot V bank of the V6 in these cars, which is actually a pretty serviceable spot. And if you are intimidated by removing or replacing your turbo, do not fret, because not only do we have a DIY on that job itself, but my buddy Rusty here didn't even have to pull the front bumper assembly off to do it. So whether you're doing an upgrade or you're just doing an OE replacement, we do carry the OE replacements, and it is a doable job within your garage. So do not fret, this is actually a pretty conveniently placed system. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and didn't necessarily get intimidated by all of the products I have here on the table. I hope that this educated you guys on what are some wear areas to look out for when you're shopping for a B9 S4 or S5, or if you currently own one. And I hope that you figured out what kits are going to be essential for you during your ownership that you can buy on fcpeuro.com. Now, if you guys like this video, please hit the like button below. And if you had any questions or concerns, comment away. If you guys enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Check out our channel for more videos on this subject or any other platforms for that matter. Really appreciate you guys watching this video. We'll see you on the next one.